Welcome, everyone who's joined already. We're so glad you could be here to join us today. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. There's only a couple of people in right now, but hopefully some more folks will join as we get going. So we'll kick off anyway because we've got quite a lot to get through and we want to share with you all the incredible work that's been happening in the last year. Hopefully folks will join as we're talking and we'll start regardless. So again, welcome. I'm Georgina Gorman. I'm Executive Director of TreeSisters, and my wonderful colleague Ashley Tamburello, who is our Head of Impact and Engagement, is joining us today as well. Welcome to Rooted in Impact. It's going to be a look back at a year of restoration, of empowerment and connection for our business partners to enjoy, but also for any interested businesses to find out more about our work. So thank you already for being here, folks that are on the line. If you'd like to, in the chat box, pop your name and where you're joining us from. As folks arrive, we can start to just find out a little bit more who's in the room. We will close chat down during the session so we can all focus on the amazing stories that are being presented, so we don't get distracted by the chat box. And we normally start our meetings at TreeSisters by arriving into the space and showing gratitude for the earth. And it's a practice that we're starting to try in our external events as well. So we'd love for you to just take a moment to do that with us now as well. I'd invite you to set your eyes out the window on a tree if you have some greenery near you, or perhaps on a pot plant in your room. None of that's available, then perhaps just imagine a place in the world where you really feel nature's bounty around you and can tap into that gratitude that we should all have for Mother Earth. So we take a moment just to do that now. Thank you all for joining us in that moment. It is so important to show gratitude for Earth, and so much of our modern life truly takes nature for granted. Those moments also give us space to think about what is at risk and what we could lose if we continue on the trajectory that we're on. So many of the challenges that we face in the world today, be it the climate crisis, the oppression of women, the destruction of the natural world, the rise of global organizations creating monopolies in industries, billionaires hoarding wealth, economic uncertainty, volatility. I think I could go on and on. These are not separate issues. They all stem from the same systems of power built on extraction, control, and endless profit, not considering the cost, either currently or in the future. And also, this system is built on a profound disconnection from the living world that sustains us all and makes it possible for us all to live on this planet we call home. So, if we want to change the path that we're on as a species, we need to start laying the stepping stones now. And we believe that the work we do at TreeSisters is part of that path and is deeply connected. So, TreeSisters, if you've heard of us before, we're a vibrant living movement where environmental action meets deep nature connection and gender equity. We are pushing for a way of living that remembers how to be in right relationship with the land and its limits, and that empowers the rights of everyone so that we can live in equity and harmony with each other. One of the practical ways that we do this is through ethical, women-led, community-led restoration. We are actively fighting climate change by restoring the planet, by planting trees, by returning resources to the land and communities. And we're protecting the planet for generations to come in that work. We also particularly focus on restoring global balance by working with a focus on gender equity. So, in a world that's shaped by patriarchal values, our work uplifts women through funding, training, platforming, advocacy, multiple streams, which we'll share with you today. But a starting point is nature connection. Our mission starts with that because people will protect what they love. And we are here to help people remember what used to be obvious. We are nature. Humans are not apart from it, but a part of it. And with that comes responsibility to limit our harm, to live within the limits of our planet that we live on, and to give back where we can. So, Tree Sisters has always stood for systemic change and using our voice and connections and influence to push for change, to spotlight a different way of living, away from systems of oppression and control, towards instead to a state of balance and restoration and peace. So, becoming a tree sister, supporting our work is about all of these things and more. And as you can tell, it's about so much more than just planting trees. It's believing that there's a better way of living on this planet, of doing business on this planet, and it's about taking real steps to rebuild our relationship with Earth and with each other. Now, this presentation is going to be about our work last year, and we have to say that this year has been incredibly tough for everyone in the charitable sector. Imagine you may have heard that already. As the world continues to face many urgent challenges, economic uncertainty, ecological decline, erosion of democracies, growing inequality around the world, Tree Sisters has remained rooted in our mission, and that mission is more necessary than ever. So it's just lit a fire under us to work even harder as we move forward. And at this point in time, the leadership of businesses is so integral. So to those joining us today, you're already a business partner of ours, and I can see a couple in the chat. So thank you so much for being here with us today, and thank you for standing alongside us. Your belief in this mission matters now more than ever. And to those who are just joining us today, thank you so much for being here and stepping forward for nature. We all need to step up and step forward now while we still have the time. And it is really timely that just last week we passed the Earth Overshoot Day, and that's the day when humanity's demand for ecological resources exceeds the resources the Earth can regenerate within the year. So that means in 2025, we would need 1.8 Earths to meet our current demands as a human species. So from now till the end of the year, we're living on credit. That means we're borrowing from our future, and that future continues to look uncertain unless we act now. But there is hope. Around the world, people are joining together to protect and restore nature and live in reciprocity and balance. And your support of our work allows women like Rosalind to restore their landscapes whilst finally getting a seat at the table and having their voice be heard. So before I continue on, just some final housekeeping now that folks have filtered in. We have an hour together today and we have some time for Q&A at the end, hopefully. You are welcome to add any questions into Zoom in the Q&A function as we go. I will say a trigger warning for gender-based violence and sexual violence. It's an issue within some of the communities we work with, and also it's something that our work can address and help to improve. Also, a disclaimer that these figures are as accurate as they can be in the context. We work in some challenging contexts and with communities where there are some barriers to monitoring, and also cultural norms can make it challenging for things like number of women participants to be accurately reported as well. Also flag that our reporting year as a charity runs April to March, so that's why we're saying 24 to 25, whereas some of the projects start at different times of the year and work in line with their rainy seasons. So we may call out different time periods at certain points, particularly when talking about individual projects. So I've already mentioned some of the current context we're living in and why we should all reconnect and care about nature. But if that's not been convincing enough, I should say, as you're joining from organisations, it's also good business sense. So restoring nature and fighting climate change reduces the risk to all businesses of climate-related disasters. If that's not something that affects you now, it's likely that one day it will. So whilst a climate disaster might not be on your doorstep yet, it's likely that you might see the impact sooner with things like supply chains, economies and trading, or insurance premiums and availability of insurance, and factors that may impact your employees and customers like poor health, climate-based migration. So we're likely to see some of those secondary effects, even if we live in a kind of a medium climate in particularly from me speaking from the south of England. So we need to act now to restore our planet. It's for your customers, for your stakeholders, but also for yourselves, your families, and for future generations. Now, I've been quite negative so far, but it's not just about avoiding risk. So, supporting a charity, particularly one aligned with your values, can bring many marketing opportunities, brand loyalty, and employee benefits. So, there are incredible positives too for your organizations and the planet. So, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Ashley now, who's going to share some more about our restoration and reforestation work this year. Over to you, Ashley.
Thanks, Georgina. Again, my name's Ashley. I'm head of impact and engagement at Tree Sisters. And as you may or may not be aware, Tree Sisters combines three areas of work. We work within gender equity, nature connection, and also ethical reforestation. As we move into that discussion, it's essential that we all understand, and I think we probably all do at this point, that we are living at a turning point. If we look around, we watch the news, we go on whatever social media channels we're on, we can see the warning signs. We see rising temperatures, we see floods, we see dying forests, see ecosystems falling apart. And we know that climate change is no longer a distant threat. It is a reality and it is unfortunately here. It also disproportionately impacts those that are closest to the land, especially women and children and rural communities. And those women are the ones that we work with daily. So this is really something we want you to think about as we go through these projects and understand why we work within, especially women-led projects. Women are more highly impacted than men. Our Tree Sister Restoration Strategy believes that the path forward isn't just about planting trees, but about planting equity, restoring dignity, and rewriting that bond that exists between people and the earth. Tree Sisters has been around now for about 11 years, and we've worked across quite a few countries. And we know that the one thing that is coming clear to us year after year after year is that when local women and communities lead, those forests thrive. We work within community-led reforestation, and those projects deliver higher survival rates of the trees. They deliver stronger biodiversity and they have longer and stronger term impact because those projects are rooted in local knowledge and ownership. It makes perfect sense to say that those people who live in Bolivia, for example, have a better understanding of the land than someone who works in a government organization somewhere in Europe or North America. So those projects are going to be more successful. We know that. 90% of our projects plant trees chosen by the community for their food, their medicinal, and their ecological value. Those forests also become a safe haven for all types of life. Community-led forests typically achieve 15 to 30% higher survival rates of those trees than externally managed projects. That's huge because people are more invested in what they plant. Those restored forests absorb CO2, they stabilize soils, and they reduce floods and landslides. One of our projects in Uganda, women-led bamboo planting along riverbanks, is actively reducing the risk of landslides, which they have seen in recent years. Training in agroforestry, seed saving, and eco-enterprise provides women with alternative income sources to slash and burn farming or charcoal production, which thereby also clearly reduces the pressure on those forests. So we know that women-led and community-owned restoration projects, the forests recover faster, the communities become more climate resilient, and the women gain agency, income, and voice. And again, those women are the ones that are most impacted by climate change around the world. So these community-led restoration outperforms traditional Western approaches. It's rooted in reciprocity, it's sustained by local stewardship, and it's designed for long-term resilience. Some of our business partners do ask about carbon credits. Tree Sisters does not do carbon offsetting. There is a reason for that. We do have a policy around it, and we only mention it because this is a webinar for current or future business partners. Not all investment in climate solutions we know are positive, and much of the carbon solution narrative revolves around carbon markets. There's certainly a place for that, but it's also limited to fixing the world's climate problem through the same approach that caused it. Essentially, Tree Sisters, we don't offer the carbon credits because we don't believe nature should be reduced to a commodity. We champion these community-led regenerative approaches that honor indigenous wisdom, restore ecosystems, and prioritize that long-term impact. So if you're a business partner today who all of a sudden is going, oh, I really wanted to talk about carbon offsetting or carbon credits, don't go, stay, hear us out, and we can have a further discussion about that at another point in time. The next slide is a map of the projects that we have had over 2024 and 2025. You will see that they are pretty much, all over this beautiful expanse of land. The projects that we'll hear about today are pretty diverse in where they're coming from, but these are the projects, their locations, the names of the projects. So you can see they all are forest-based. If you would like to learn some more about the projects that we don't have time for today, check out our social media channels and our website, and there's lots more details there. So, this has been an incredibly impactful year for us. As Georgina mentioned previously, anyone who's paying any attention to the economy around them knows that everyone's in a bit of a tight space, and especially charities. I think Georgina mentioned on average in the UK, 11 charities close a day. So Tree Sisters is really proud of where we are right now, despite all the hardships around us. And we really thank our business partners and our donors for keeping us here today. Despite those challenges, we're so proud of these numbers. These donations have helped support all of these women, 210,000 trees funded. We've restored over 340 hectares. We've worked across 7 countries. And the support has directly benefited over 35,000 people and indirectly benefited nearly 200,000. So, directly benefited being those people who are maybe directly related to family or schools or colleagues communities who are directly within those planting areas, and indirectly being those that exist within the outside area of that. And those numbers are huge. One of the things we really want to highlight is that 90% average tree survival rate. Restoration projects have a pretty low survival rate. That's not something that people often talk about, but it is true. Community-led restoration projects often have a survival rate much higher than any rest, and those typically are between 70 and 90%. So the fact that we are at the high end of that, and we believe it's because those projects really incorporate nature and ancestral wisdom. They really love the land that they're on, and we also believe that it's because they are women-led projects. Those have that high end of tree survival rate. We do have a few projects who are reporting as close to 97% tree survival rate, and that is so huge. Those trees, those new forests, are going to be there for a very long time. Our partnership agreements have us involved in the care and monitoring of the trees for 10 years. So we're not coming in, we're not throwing a bunch of money at a problem and then walking away. We are invested in these projects. Thank you, Marie. It absolutely is amazing. Very proud of those numbers. This is also the first year that we had an increased request for agroforestry trees. And if you're not super familiar with agroforestry, they help support economic independence, which, as you can imagine, in communities where women may have had a long-term reliance on men or more patriarchal structure, that economic independence is absolutely life-changing. Obviously, also increasing nutritional benefits, biodiversity, and supporting things like local pollinators. Those agroforestry trees also protect old growth and rainforests, and they create new sources of food and resources. We have a comment from one of our community members in Brazil, and I think this is just absolutely beautiful. So we'll just take a moment and land on that. I fully admit I've spent some time Googling some of the trees that they have sent us comments about because I certainly don't know all of them. This is an absolutely incredible piece. I think we can all say that we, genuinely love the trees and the forest, but everyone, I think, has a pretty soft spot for animals. And we know that restoring forests isn't just about trees, it's also about creating space for life to return to those ecosystems. As forest cover increases and natural corridors are reconnected, wildlife begins to find its way back. This is a video from one of our projects in Kenya where reforested land is home again to elephants. And that baby elephant, if you can see it, absolutely makes my heart just beam. Um, this is one of those moments where if you question, you go, oh, is this the right place? This is the right job for me? Is this the right sector for me? Did I make choices that I shouldn't have? Seeing things like this, seeing elephants return to land that we help support is absolutely the best feeling. Um, Videos like this remind us that when we care for the land, that nature does respond. So I'm going to pop it back over to Georgina to take you into an exploration of women's leadership and gender equity within our projects.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Yeah, I don't know how I can top some of the impact stats around the restoration work, and particularly the video of the elephants returning, as you say, is so powerful. But I have the honor of talking about women's leadership and gender equity. So if anything can match the incredible stories that we've already had, it's the women that we've been supporting. So let's jump into that. So as you probably already know, gender equity has always been central to Tree Sisters' mission. It is quite literally in our name. And we believe that restoring the planet must go hand in hand with addressing social inequalities. Environmental degradation and gender-based injustice are deeply linked. It's not about the exclusion of men, it's about the inclusion of everyone. Everyone must act to save our planet, and everyone must have a voice. Everyone must have a seat at the table. So, to regenerate ecosystems, we must uplift those that are most impacted and the least heard. And that means particularly women, and particularly women of colour and Indigenous women. If we talk for a second about some of the challenges that women face, I've mentioned that they are the most impacted. So, globally, women are disproportionately affected by climate change. And that's due to systemic barriers that are inherent within our society, like cultural barriers, social barriers, economic, political, legal. Some practical examples are that women rely heavily on forests for essentials like water, firewood, food, and medicine, and those resources are degraded by climate change and deforestation. So, as forests disappear, women need to walk further to collect those resources, which can impact their health. They face greater risks travelling deeper into forests, which put them at greater risk of sexual and gender-based violence. And it's not just everyday lives that are impacted for women. During natural disasters, women and children are 14 times more likely to die than men. Now, some of the reasons for that could be clothing. So, women are more likely to their cultural dress is more likely to be long dresses and baggier materials that mean that are less likely to escape things like landslides and floods. They're more likely to be in the home looking after children and elders, which means, again, they're less likely to make an attempt to escape without being able to take their family with them. In some cultural norms, they're not allowed to leave the house without men, or it's not socially acceptable to leave the house without men. So sometimes women actually perish waiting for a man to return to save them. And also, in some cultures where the information about impending natural disasters is transmitted via the high status positions, that means that information travels from men to men. And often women are not even told of the impending natural disaster coming their way. It's still a terrible story for women who survive disasters. They actually face lower life expectancy after the disaster too. Whilst women are the most impacted, they are also among the most effective change makers. And that's because they have the deep knowledge of the forest and what's needed in the community. And Ashley touched on some of that earlier about having that local knowledge, and particularly women being the users of the forest and the resources are more likely to know what's needed. That's why all our restoration projects embed gender equity and are led by the needs and cultures of local communities to uplift women and to be sensitive to the needs and cultural norms within the places that we're working. Many of our projects include elements that specifically support women. So things like agroforestry training and paid employment means that women are able to take on more high status work, which improves their positions within their communities. Women can be trained in leadership in some of our projects, which enables them to take on some community leadership roles and therefore have a say in decision making. We've supported fruit and vegetable planting in individual gardens called kitchen gardens. Those improve food security and nutrition and also create a stream of income from the surplus that's often created, grown through these kitchen gardens. We have training how to build eco-friendly cook stoves with locally sourced materials. Those actually reduce health risks and also protect forests because they reduce the amount of firewood that's needed. Within one project, we have supported women to restart a reusable sanitary pad enterprise, which means it's supporting menstrual health, enabling a stream of income for the women working on the tailoring, the creation of the sanitary pads, and also create supplies to keep girls in school. Another element is mobilizing gender champions, which I'm going to talk about in a specific project. So again, you can just see the power of this holistic approach, really listening to what communities need and thinking about women's empowerment and restoration in combination, not as an either or, just supporting women or just supporting the environment. Truly, they're embedded together, and solutions which support women can support the environment and vice versa. Another way that we work with gender equity is we're always aiming to uplift the voices of women in our partnerships and throughout the restoration sector. So we're always encouraging awareness and action to support global gender equity and nature restoration. Our work at Tree Sisters truly recognises that women are not just victims of these crises, they are powerful agents of change, and our mission is to amplify those voices, to restore forests and rebalance our world. So, looking at some of the stats from last year, your support helped over 11,000 women to gain skills in forestry, to plant trees in their communities, to be trained in leadership, to create kitchen gardens. That's 11,000 women's lives changed thanks to your support last year. Across all of our projects, over 60% of participants identified as female. I will say though, to caveat that number, it's we know it's likely that that figure's underreported. One of the reasons for that is due to cultural norms and challenges. Sometimes in the communities that we're working in, it's very normal to, even if the woman is the participant, for her to put her husband's name, to take credit as the head of the household. And in our partners' report, to quote them, a woman might not dare to put her own name. So we know that it's likely that those are underreported figures there, and also for girls not being reported, we've mostly focused on women. Also, over 450 women stepped into leadership roles within the project or within their communities. So that's a huge impact, a huge number of people, women that have had now space to have their voice be heard. And women were at the heart of this project in DRC together with Association Voix Libre. So in the Ruzizi Plain in Luvungi, DRC, if you imagine the land once flourished with fruit-bearing trees, thick forest canopies, and traditional ecological knowledge was passed down for generations about how to restore that land. But decades of unsustainable logging, of conflict and neglect of the land has all taken its toll. The forests have thinned and the soil turned fragile. Rainfall declined, which then obviously became a vicious cycle. And the forests around Luvungi weren't just trees, they were medicine, food, fuel, shade, and shelter. And we've mentioned about the reliance, particularly of women, on those forests. Communities that relied on agriculture also found themselves struggling to feed their families. Communities had also lost trust in reforestation efforts in the area after some failed NGO projects. So, without a change, the cycle of poverty and environmental degradation would have just continued. And in the words of a woman from the project in DRC, we used to farm with the help of nature. Now the land is tired. We needed to bring the forest back. And that's exactly what happened. So you can see some of the stats on the screen. Over 20,000 trees planted, including over 12,000 fruit trees, for example, mango and mandarin. It's always nice to mention them, that does make me hungry. Those were planted in 16 edible squares, created in schools, churches, health centres, and households. And the remainder of those trees reforested over 41 hectares, across the Ruzizi Plain with native tree regeneration encouraged. So those edible squares now feed families with food security visibly improving. Over 13,000 people have directly benefited already, with over 85,000 people across Lamungi indirectly benefiting from those environmental improvements. Women have gained leadership, confidence, recognition. Traditional leaders have been joined in, passing down biocultural knowledge. Youth in the schools have been planting trees and learning about land stewardship. So this project can continue for generations to come. And again, in the words of a participant, these fruit trees will improve my family's diet. The forest is becoming ours again. The forest is returning, and with it, hope, food, equity, and ancestral memory. Because when forest returns, so does the future. And I'll share some more words from a project participant here. Now, this project would not have been possible without they've called community relays, and Banan was a community relay. So, 40 women were trained to lead on community engagement and project activities. They went from door to door to at least 20 households each to raise awareness about the importance of reforestation and protecting trees. They helped to identify the sites to be reforested, they organised the tree planting, they distributed the seedlings, and they also led on the monitoring too. So these women weren't just participants, they were change agents. Often they had little or no formal education, but they found themselves leading training sessions, answering questions, and coordinating the reforestation work. For many, it was their first time speaking in public, an experience that transformed their self-esteem and social standing. Their presence and leadership raised the status of women across Lamungi. So it wasn't just the women that were involved as community relays. And again, as I mentioned, they've historically been marginalised within their community, within the whole of society. So by equipping women with these tangible skills and recognising their contributions and giving them a higher status role, this project helped communities to reimagine what leadership can look like and who it can belong to. So women can be involved in leadership too. I'm conscious of time. I'm going to. Ashley, do you think we've got time for a Koki? Yeah? Okay. I'll try and be quicker. I can talk about these projects all day. And again, if we miss anything today, if I skip over anything that's interesting, then do feel free to follow up with us afterwards today. So this is another project that would not have been possible without incredible women leading the way. In Rakoki, Uganda, this project has supported over 300 women to restore fragile lands on the steep Rwenzori mountainside. As Ashley mentioned earlier about landslides, farming methods, deforestation, soil erosion have all left the area of this mountainside overexploited, and the steep terrain is vulnerable to natural disasters such as flooding, drought, and landslides. And recent landslides in this area in Kasisi have caused multiple fatalities, most of whom are women and children. So this project has been restoring degraded landscapes whilst also tackling poverty, food insecurity, and gender-based violence. Kasisi is one of the poorest regions in Uganda, with poverty levels around 55%. And because of that, malnutrition is prevalent. Around 45% of children under 6 have experienced impaired growth due to lack of nutrition as they've been growing. And in general, they've experienced food insecurity crises within the area, with 1 in 3 struggling to regularly find food. The region's also historically marked by domestic violence and gender inequality. 95% of women and girls reported in 2021 that they had survived physical violence, sexual violence, or both from the age of 15. Our initiative in Kasisi, in partnership with Alpha Women Empowerment Initiative, is a powerful women-led reforestation empowerment project rooted in local knowledge and radical listening. And this project has recruited and trained women as leaders, field agents, change agents. They've established 2 large-scale nursery beds, able to produce over 70,000 tree and bamboo seedlings per season. They've trained women in tree planting, in kitchen gardening, in group leadership, in creating energy saving cook stoves. So they've already planted tens of thousands of trees and bamboo grasses along the riverbanks. They've created gender champions, which I'll talk about in a moment. And they've also provided 36 women with startup inputs, which include the tools and or small seed funding to start up their own enterprises. So again, it's creating a future opportunity for women to have their own income and their own source of livelihood. The results from this project are just incredible and both ecologically beneficial but profound. As Ashley mentioned, the survival rate is incredibly high, 97% tree survival rate. And that's a testament to the dedication and the skills of these women farmers. The riverbanks, which were once vulnerable to erosion, have now been better stabilised with bamboo. We hope that this will mean that there will be less risk of things like landslides and floods. Food production has increased. Women are already reporting better nutrition, and they're even able to sell their surplus for additional income. Women have already assumed leadership roles in their communities and they've brought new innovations themselves to the project, like seed banking. So from each year, they're storing their seeds rather than having to buy new seeds in each year. So this is becoming a self-sustaining project that can continue for years to come. And community harmony has already been reported to be improved thanks to the work of the gender champions. Now, the gender champions have been trained to share knowledge with others about gender equity to help intervene and to counsel couples where there's a risk of domestic violence, and also to signpost and encourage reporting in cases where women have been victims of gender-based violence. 40 courageous women took on this role, and the community, as I said, has already reported greater harmony as a result of their work and their support in the community. Now, I'm glad that didn't autoplay. I was just about to talk over it. The project in Rakoki that I've just spoken about was also an expansion of a successful initiative in other sub-counties in Kasisi. And there was a training for couples about gender sharing of income and about gender equity. So I'm going to share with you a video now from one of the couples supported in the training in 2023.
Kelen owe katrom uwo mwambara yembunga obutuko bwe hanyuma nabingani na mwira wayi twabitukalabanganaako okwisongesha omweni etukalima hawuma betu esa yaribulya etukalabanganako isalemba kusya sente mubanyisombola na mwira wawe netu twamasoma ku musomo owabatreke omwaka wa hwera owangu 2023 mubatusomesya erikolera hawuma kandi neriga abana ebikalo mumweni hawuma neryo mutrasa twamaberererya ebyatwasoma erilwa kutukasomera ku musomo abatreke twabiritsuka erima mwenu wetu haimerera itwanoga haumerera twanikira haumerera twarondya katala haumerera echiru cheriyawulya itwaenda hayima itwaseka nesyasente syetu tukala hesi itwasigabira ebitawa byetu itunekirinizirye ngayowa eseno ngawatwabahola bunene na mwira wayo haima n'abana bayo kandi twabiritsuka erikulakulana mwasinja kutsibu aba alfa
omukyara wa ikavuye Zefina omusomo watwasoma nayo owabatreke twabirihambawo ebyo twasoma tunemubikolesya tunemuna omwani woyo tukanzirisomesya kuhu kw'abana.
Just incredible to hear from them directly and to know the impact of the support that that project has had. And again, you can hear another secondary effect, which we haven't mentioned yet, which is the income from some of these projects, the creation of these secondary income streams is helping to keep children in education as well. So this is just going to have so many future knock-on effects for these communities for generations to come, not just because of the environment, but for social factors too. Ashley, over to you.
Thank you. I hope at this point you're starting to see that the work that Tree Sisters does, the impact that your donations make, have a much bigger impact than literally just planting trees. There's so many great social benefits that come out of all of the financial help that we receive from our partners and our business partners and our donors. So we really do appreciate it. Um, we mentioned earlier that we have three threads of work that our projects and our organization sits within. So ethical forest reforestation, gender equity, but also nature connection. And as an organization, we believe that nature connection is at the heart of everything that we do. And when we say we mean the collective we, not just the projects and not just the people working on the ground in the planting communities. Research consistently shows that when people feel connected to the natural world around them, they are far more likely to care for it. And we do believe that reconnecting with the natural world, especially if we've had some sort of disconnect in recent time, it's essential to sustaining life on Earth. In much of the global north, where I'm assuming most of us are calling in from today, our way of living has drifted far from what our ancestors once understood, and from the wisdom that is still held by many of the indigenous and the planting communities that we cannot have infinite growth on a finite planet. And I say that again because I think it's really, really important to remember that we cannot have infinite growth on a finite planet. At Tree Sisters, we use our platform and quite frankly our privilege to advocate for our culture of reciprocity, and that acknowledges our dependence on nature and it embraces the responsibility to live within its limits. We believe that the first step in restoring our planet and nature around us is remembering that we are part of nature and that we are not separate from it. There have been a few campaigns over the last couple of years. We Are Nature is one of them that say exactly this. So we are joining a movement of like-minded organizations, policymakers, individuals, change makers who believe that we are nature. Over the past year, your donations have helped us expand our educational resources and tools, and those have inspired our global audience to see forests as living allies, something that we are a part of, and not just resources for us to exploit. These materials have encouraged personal reflection and collective responsibility, and they helped us reconnect to the earth. And in doing so, change the trajectory of this rapidly changing world around us. We believe that, again, that disconnection from nature is really the root of the heart of the crisis that we're in. We don't believe that nature connection is vague or floaty or hippie or whatever word that you want to use. We do believe that it is essential for our survival. When we see ourselves, when we understand that we are part of nature, we begin to act like it and we live within those limits. We give back and we protect everything that nature gives us. In the past year, as we've expanded this catalog of opportunities for nature collections, or nature connections, excuse me, we have hosted 23 events. We've had 1,246 attendees registered, and we've had, or excuse me, attend, and we've raised awareness to almost 4,000 people. Our forest bathing resource and webpage has been downloaded 400 times, and we've spoke to the power of grounding, and 1,000 people have visited our site to learn more about nature connection. We've also kicked off our book club, which we do have one coming up in September, which we'd love for you to join if you can, and there'll be some information about that at the end. One of our projects that's a little bit different than some of the others that Georgina has already spoken about is Bolivia. And in this particular region, these planting partners have integrated their own ceremonies, ancestral practices, and cultural rituals into their planting projects. By doing this, they've strengthened the spiritual ties to the land, and they have shared their traditional ecological knowledge that's often passed down from great-grandmothers to grandmothers to mothers to children through that feminine line. And they are able to connect people with earth and each other. They have different customs, such as Ani, which means reciprocal work, and obviously respecting Pachamama, which is Mother Earth. And these ceremonies are integrated into the restoration process, which then again reinforces those cultural traditions. These are beautiful pictures, but if you can just close your eyes or not, but just imagine the situation that existed in this region before these projects were able to go and reforest. It was a dry hillside. It was once alive with native trees, birdsong, and the footsteps of ancestors. Over time, this land fell silent. There were fires that scarred the hills, crops were failing, and families were walking for hours to collect water and wood. In the highlands and valleys of this region, women led in indigenous communities whose traditions and survival rate are deeply rooted into the land watch their forests vanish. Deforestation, climate change, and economic hardship had left bare soils, food scarcities, and sacred landscapes lost, taking with them the wisdoms of their generations. As this project arrived and the planting kicked off, it restored not just the trees and forests, but also the restoration of life, dignity, and relationship to Mother Earth. Across the region, 45 edible squares were planted. Edible squares are living gardens of fruit trees, medicinal plants, and shade-giving species of trees. With 12,000 trees took root, including 8,000 that are fruit trees. The communities in those areas were trained in tree care, irrigation, and ancestral reforestation practice. Women led every step. They designed, they planted, they tended the land, and they weaved together their traditional knowledge with modern agroforestry. The project came alive with ceremonies, storytelling, and school programs, connecting the cultural and spiritual ties that had been fractured to the land. The land has positively responded. I get chills in this. This region now has 6 hectares that have now reforested. 12 are under natural regeneration, and 18 hectares are protected. The pollinators have hummed, the birds are returning. They have proof that Andean fox are returning to walk in the hills again, and the wildflowers are blooming where it once was just bare land. The families are able to harvest fruit near their home, so reducing the amount of time spent away from their home and reducing hunger and labor. One of the women participants in the project said, "We are not just planting trees, we are planting our future." This project demonstrates that spiritual and ceremonial practices are not symbolic add-ons, but the core to how restoration is understood, initiated, and sustained. We have a nice quote on the next page. Pachamama again means Mother Earth. So every tree planted is a blessing for the Mother Earth. Quickly moving on, because we are running out of time. We also launched this past year, Rooted in Ethics. It was a project that was 5 years in the making. It was a partnership with The Fountain, which is a community of elders and spiritual leaders, in addition to other original nations, cultures around the world. It is a framework for community tree stewardship. It involved research, collaboration, deep listening, and tons of development and writing. It has already backed our internal restoration strategy that we are sharing externally as much as possible. And it's an alternative approach to ethical restoration. It is also, and I'm very proud to announce just in the past month, it has been announced that it's a basis for an ethical framework within the Rights of Nature movement. Into next year, we hope to gain more funding to raise awareness to it, and to make it more accessible, more widely adopted, and deeply integrated into a wider network of restoration practices. Georgina?
We're here at the launch of Rooted in Ethics, the Community Tree Stewardship Framework.
Fundamentally, most of our current crises relate back to the broken relationship between humans and nature, and we need to repair that relationship in order to solve those crises. And Rights of Nature is a way of doing that through the law.
All of this beautiful way of understanding the way that original peoples were looking at the skies And we're relating to the cycles that they could see in the sky, encompassing the cycles of nature.
So much of the narrative around tree planting restoration is about quantifying nature. This is a completely different view of things. This is around a transformational approach, looking at how communities are affected, looking at rights of communities, but also looking at the rights of nature, looking at the fact that nature needs to recover.
The presentation of the Rooted in Ethics is just a manifestation of who we are, transcending from the old ways of being, from the me to the we, because we have to come together and solve this systemic crisis that we are living through.
Okay. Thank you, Georgina.
Thank you, Ashley. It was such an honour and privilege to be at the Rooted in Ethics launch with Mandahi leading a beautiful ceremony there. And it just shows how incredible it can be to bring together so many active folks like Lawyers for Nature and International Tree Foundation, who are one of our partners at the moment. So it was just an incredible experience, and yeah, honoured to share that work with you all. In the interest of time, I'm going to go through what's next, but also if you'd like to pop any questions into Q&A as we go, then we'll have some time. We'll have some time to receive them whilst I'm talking through here as well. So what's next for us as we step into the next year? We're already a quarter into 25 to 26. We always remain rooted in the principles that have guided our work for years. So care for the earth, the empowerment of women, a deep connection to ethical community-led restoration, and the vital importance of reconnecting with the natural world before it's too late. All of the things that we've mentioned today. But we also recognise that at this moment in time, it truly calls for evolution, for courage and clarity. So we will continue to champion restoration that uplifts women. And at the same time, we will be making sure our voice is heard now that nature needs our voice more than ever. We've always stood for systemic transformation at TreeSisters. We've always spoken about shifting from consumption to restoration, from patriarchy to equity, from colonial structures to community sovereignty and rights. And we're always talking about balance and restoring and changing systems that cause harm. In 25 to 26, we'll be looking about how we can keep that voice of safety and sanctuary that we've always had, whilst also stepping more intentionally into advocacy and systemic change. As Ashley mentioned, we've been invited to the Rights of Nature movement, and our work with Rooted in Ethics has been called out to be an example of what a code of ethics may look like in that space. We also are very proud to have had a London Climate Action Week event for the first time this year about the rights of nature. And also we have the co-founder of Lawyers for Nature, who are a pioneer of nature's rights, and she herself is a pioneer for nature's rights. Bronte Ansell has joined our board of trustees for starting this year. So we have some deep expertise about joining some of the more movement based space around rights of nature particularly. And we're excited to look at what that could mean for us to keep core to our roots of safety and sanctuary, but also live up to the moment that we're in, where we need drastic change quickly and effectively. As we've mentioned with Nature Connection, restoring the planet begins with restoring our relationship. We'll continue to forge forward with trying to connect as many people as we can back to nature, to remember a different way of living, to remember that we are part of nature. We will continue to build those inclusive and accessible opportunities. And we will do this all whilst being flexible and malleable as the world shifts around us. So we will continue to build a strong and resilient TreeSisters, and we committed to be here for as long as we are needed. So whilst there are still forests to be restored and women who are not heard in their communities, we are still needed on this earth. So we will continue to fight to make that happen. And it's with support from businesses like you and from our wonderful community of donors that we are able to do this work. And together we will continue to reforest the earth, to restore relationship, and to reimagine what can be possible when women rise for nature. So We do have a couple of minutes for questions. I've not seen any come in yet, but you're free to feel free to pop them in the Q&A box or in the chat if that's easier. And I'm not going to pause on this slide just because we've got a few more to show. So I'll continue through, and if any come in, then shout. And Ashley, feel free to come off mute and yell at me. So what it will look like in 25 to 26, with your support, we can continue to strengthen women's leadership. We can restore forests. So again, just a huge thank you for standing with us. I think Ben and Marie, you're left on the line, and you are amazing business partners of ours already. So I thank you both deeply from the bottom of my heart. And to anyone listening or to tuning in later who's not yet a business partner of ours who wants to learn more, you are welcome to message us at business@treesisters.org. And I think we'll also pop that in the chat so you can see that. And we can talk about our work, the partnership options that we have, and the impact your support could have. And to any existing partners who may want to expand their support, may want to think about collaborative opportunities to spread the message of our work and also of your incredible organisation, we are always open to exploring that collaboration with you. So just a mention of some of those amazing nature connection opportunities that Ashley mentioned earlier. We have our next full moon gathering coming up on the 11th of August, and the next book club is coming up on the 24th of September, reading The Spirit of the Rainforest. Now, if you missed it, Ashley had a conversation with Dr. Rosa, who's the author of this wonderful book. She had that conversation earlier this year, so it's on our YouTube channel. If you missed it, please do go back and watch it. It's a great watch. And we'd love to see you at any of these two events or any of our events in the future. And we'd love to hear from you if there's a particular nature connection opportunity which you feel might be of interest for us to facilitate. Please do get in touch. And these are all the ways you can do that. So you can see more about our updates, or you can perhaps message into us if there's anything else you would like us to talk more about or anything that we've not covered today. Not seeing any questions, but again, if anything comes up afterwards, you'd like to find out more, do feel free to reach out. So a final thank you from me, from Ashley, from the whole team at Tree Sisters, from our restoration partners, from the thousands of women that you've supported in this work, you've given purpose, value, better opportunities to, from the forests that you've restored for the health of our whole planet and for generations to come. And on behalf of nature herself, by being here from supporting our work, you're stepping up as a leader in business at a time when the planet needs us the most. So thank you for your leadership in that space. And thank you for being here today. And we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.